Drew, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. I know my co-founder Justin connected us, and I looked at some of your work on your website. And of course, I'm a big fan of go-to-market topics, and win-loss analysis and strategies are just critical to us running the right plays and being successful in general. I don't know how you could not do that, but before we dive into some of the strategies here and thoughts, first of all, how are you? And happy, what are we on? Uh, Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. Yep, we've just gotten past Halloween, had some fun with the kids around that holiday, and yeah, looking forward to try to win some budgets at the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, real quick, why don't you just tell folks a little bit about your career background and what kind of inspired you or led you to now becoming a win loss expert in the space?
Sure. Well, I am a career product marketer. I did it at Bazaar Voice, which is a ratings and review company for most retailers and brands, and then I went to Rev, which is a captions and transcriptions company where I ran product marketing and then the whole marketing team. And win loss was something that I always did, was something that I always purchased, was something I always used and found useful. Um, but it was never an idea that I had. This is a business I should go start. I have started a few other businesses, two kind of real time investment and money investment opportunities that did not work out. And they were largely because I was focused on things I think that I didn't know that well, but I was excited about. Even for this new business, I was exploring, AI in wind turbines and just cool shit, but areas I had no business being in. And so when I had an opportunity to move on to my next thing, I was honestly just looking for some fractional work that could help me find my next big idea. I was inspired as a kid by Richard Branson and Travis Kalanick and Andrew Mace, like all of these early 2000s tech founders, mid 2000s tech founders. When I did that, I went to one of my old bosses and asked for fractional work. And she said, "Hey, we don't have anything for you, but I am running this win-loss program. I think you'd be exceptional at it. I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but we can pay you $5,000 a month when you do these interviews, process them, provide individual reports and quarterly reports." And I realized, like, man, what an opportunity to work on an area that I know really well for an audience or role that I've been in, that I've run marketing teams and product marketing teams. So I know what they need. I think I know how they can make it better. And took that first job, not knowing if it's where things would end up. And I've grown such a passion for it, understand so much about the opportunity now and where people are leaving just money on the table and learnings on the table. I think it boils down to when we start these companies as a founder or early employee, you're so close to the customers. You're doing everything with them. They are crafting every part of your narrative, your product. But as you scale and you have large engineering teams and product teams and marketing and sales, leadership just gets farther and farther away from customers. And customers are what open your eyes to where the opportunity is, where your flaws are, where the competitors are strong. And win-loss and competitive research is a way to kind of unblock that chasm that is created, build a bridge over the chasm, better analogy, and to get back to a real pulse on what matters to the customers and enable you to grow.
Awesome. Well, we know that marketers are knee deep in planning for 2025. What tips would you give product marketers or maybe other go to market professionals or those stakeholders who are thinking about launching a win loss program coming up?
Totally. Well, so often through our careers, we are thrown priorities. Like, this is what you need to go do. And it's either ideas about a new market we need to go capture. We need to go down market to SMB or up market to enterprise or go into healthcare. And oftentimes we have to do so kind of unequipped with the tools to be successful. And just like the founder who started that company might have gone and talked to those customers. Maybe they were in the industry to begin with. You can come with that same perspective to your leadership team fairly quickly by going and talking to people in that industry. You may have a few of those customers already and start there. Find out why they chose you, what their pain points are, and what's going on. Go talk to competitors. And one of the things we get the most praise for and excitement for in our work is when we go talk to former sellers from a competitor of my client, right? So go find who's in the space already and who's built product for those companies or built sales. You can help shape a strategy that's going to lead to 6 to 9 months of time and money, and really be in a leadership position as a product marketer, and not just go start executing on building a deck or coming up with sales materials.
Awesome. How do you balance these product marketing priorities? It seems like product marketers have so many jobs to be done, and it somewhat varies based on the weather.
Yeah.
How do you start to like effectively balance those priorities?
It's a great question. I mean, when I was in leadership positions and I had teams of product marketers, you get asked to do a whole bunch. You've got a set of OKRs. What I find most effective is to take a first pass yourself at listening at everything you're being asked and draw a line where you think your resources can handle it and where they can't. Um, and then have that conversation with the leadership team, because there's only two ways to solve the problem. You either add resources to it or you move the scope and you move the line. And once you get alignment on that list of priorities and what the team can actually accomplish, you're in such a better position to not be reactive for the rest of the year, because it gives you the ability to say no, right? For the first time, somebody says, hey, oh, we need new positioning against this competitor. We need to launch this new feature, not even a product. We need to get it out into a market for adoption. You can come back and say, hey, we all agreed at the beginning of the year, these are the 7 priorities we can tackle with these 3 resources and this agency budget. I'm happy to discuss maybe moving something out of our priority list to accomplish this new goal. And you can only do that because you've identified the targets or identified the work that you can get done within your resources, agreed upon the scope and the resources you're going to tie to it, um, and socialize it. And so, yeah, it also helps you seem like more of a proactive team player and not a no complainer. We've got too much work. It's like, no, because here's our roadmap. So often product has a roadmap and where they're taking things. And if you brought them a whole bunch of products that they were going to have to go add into that year, they would say, I either need more engineering support or need to change this roadmap. You can do the same thing as a marketer or a product marketer.
Now, alignment is huge, right?
Yeah.
Especially these days. I mean, it's always been, right? A critical piece to a successful organization. But I think that given there aren't those water cooler kind of engagements, you're not cruising around like the office and just, oh, have that serendipitous thing, right? You can't really do that effectively or in the same way. I shouldn't say effectively because I think some organizations have figured out versions that work. But let's just say that in person, when we had those dynamics, it was a little more serendipitous, right? It was a little easier to pull someone when you're like looking at them right across the office, especially in the tech world where you didn't have the little cubicles and stuff, right?
Mhm.
But or at least that was what it was known for. Like I think Google probably made that a thing right back in the early 2000s. But when we think about aligning and ultimately convincing sales and product to get involved with your programs, how do you do this effectively, and how do you do this in a way that's not disruptive? Because I know that sales leaders, not all, but some sales leaders will be like, you're not going to get on my reps calendars, and they got to be
Yeah,
calling and to sending
totally.
proposal, whatever, right? So how do you do that?
Well, when you think about win-loss and getting feedback from customers, an unhealthy view of it is, hey, it's going to expose things we're doing poorly and it's going to get us in trouble, right? And people can feel defensive about it. They also can feel defensive about you talking to customers or people who've gone through the pipeline, because you don't want win-loss, like ruining whatever you had there. The reality is you're doing it on their behalf. And so to get them aligned with you, bring them in super early to the process is kind of like the answer to any way to work with someone. But talk to sales about what they're looking for, how they want to improve, what they're seeing, concerns they're having about the way prospects are engaging in market, concerns they have about competitors. That way, when you bring the data back, it doesn't feel like an accusation, but a, hey, we went and crafted this goal together, this research project together, and now I'm bringing back what I found so that we can go, build this company forward. It's the same thing for product, right? You don't want to come to them at the end with a finished research win-loss analysis and say, hey, your integrations strategy sucks and this feature is broken. You want to say, hey, remember when we talked about integrations as an opportunity for the company? I validated that, and especially amongst your upper mid-market segment, they really loved you. And I think a couple more of them would have spent money representing a huge revenue like opportunity for the business if integrations can be added. And here's a few of them that we found. Like that's a simple shift that it makes a big difference when you're trying to bring sales and product leadership along.
Interesting. The point of defensiveness really like stood out, right? Because salespeople, they may be not following the sales script, right? That maybe product marketing set up and going rogue and doing all these things. And if it's working, it's
Yeah.
easy for them to continue to do that. So to expose them, that's a really interesting point. That's very much like one of those human qualitative things, right?
And the other thing I didn't mention was teams can get defensive about you even talking to customers, even
Mm.
even past like, hey, it's a closed loss deal. And they're like, well, we think it's still open. The reality is, our business will find new opportunities or re-engage clients that considered someone else because we're coming to them with an unbiased, patient, open look to find out how my clients can build better product to better serve their customers and earn the business of new prospects. Like it is a humble, egoless approach to serving your customers. And when you approach them in a non-sales setting, you're pushing nothing on them and are truly there to just hear about their experiences. Man, you learn so much about,
Mm.
oh, we did go with this vendor, but we really just see it as an interim solution. We're re-looking at it in 6 months. And if you guys packaged it in this way or had this one thing, we would actually really like to work with you. Sometimes those are things that the company already has. It just didn't get surfaced that was a concern or a question. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be defensiveness early on. Start small, build out the program, make them a part of it, and ensure them that you're doing it on to their benefit. And it ends up becoming for some of my best clients something that sales is really looking forward to and like asks for early access to.
Yeah. And I think that if you have the right culture, leadership has done the right things to help build relationships, which
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, Drew, it fucking drives me nuts when organizations are not doing this, right? And they're just so immersed in fear, immersed in their own, egos and stories and whatever for a
yeah,
variety of reasons. But as I've said many times, I believe is that you have to be a servant leader, right? If your people are not connected, excited, willing to fight for each other, like I just don't know how you have a successful organization, right? Like I'm a big sports fan, and
yeah.
every time, what do you hear? I'm very much into basketball, right? Even though I'm like barely 5'6" or something. But you hear it all the time. The locker room is what? Divided, right? And you just can't win games, right?
Yeah,
In any sport, any practice. I just don't see it. If you're not united, you're just not going to go that extra inch. You're going to be defensive to your point and these sort of things. So that really stands out to me that, us as leaders out there, we have to go beyond the numbers and the strategies and playbooks and all that and really work on the human stuff, because I would argue that if the human stuff, if your team is willing to go to war for each other, right, then they will go that extra mile to figure out these things, you know, go that extra mile to think about potential defensive sort of reactions and things like that. And if you have that language that's open, that you're able to use within the organization, and that ultimately I think is the responsibility of the leader or leadership to do this kind of stuff, to set the tone. Then again, I just think you'll be able to maximize all these strategies.
Sure, totally.
Well, let's transition into the target, right? Like, all right, you got a program together. Who is your target? And like, how do we start to really dig in and find that?
Yeah, when people start win-loss programs, most commonly they're hyper focused on why do we lose, right? And to them, that means let's go talk to deals that we lost. And of course, when you talk to people who considered you, evaluated you, and other competitors and didn't go with you, there's a lot to be learned. But man, there's just as much to be learned, if not more, from deals that you did win. And those people are very willing to talk to you. They likely evaluated other vendors, and so they can speak to your strengths versus their strengths and why they picked you, but also why they almost didn't pick you, right? The perceptions they had of you before they even entered the evaluation. So win loss, close loss deals, really valuable. Close one deals, really valuable. And then applying win loss also to churn analysis and land and expand. It's the same kind of concept. You've come up to deals with people that recently churned, recently renewed contract with you, or they renewed but they dramatically lowered their spend with you. Such a great opportunity to find out how they valued your product, process, and people, what drove them away to another vendor and why you lost that customer in the first place. And if they are spending less than they were before, is it because they're transitioning to another vendor? What went wrong in the process? What's going on there? There's a potential chance to save them and other people like them. And so when you talk about targets for win loss, it's not just close loss, it's close deals you won and lost, renewals you won and lost. And then finally, I think there's an opportunity to talk to competitors. I mentioned it early in the conversation, but some of our most treasured insights come from former product managers or former sellers from your competitor. And they could talk about things like how did they position against you and your competitors? How did they pick their target markets and kind of prioritize their account list? There's so much to learn. So I wouldn't get too hyper focused on just close lost opportunities. Expanding that scope gives you a really nice breadth to tell the story from. At the same time, you should focus on a certain type of segment, right? Too many people want to go interview anybody who came through the sales pipeline, meaning SMB and a mid-market and enterprise, or healthcare and finance. But if their two industries are really different, or the buyers from enterprise and SMB buy differently, it's really hard to connect the dots on trends or learnings. And so focus tightly on the target audience, but go broad in the types of customer they become, whether it's lost, won, renewal, or competitor.
Awesome. And how do we avoid it getting stuck on the shelf?
Yeah, I don't know about you and your roles at product marketing, and I know that the whole company is built around having assets that are valuable to individual sellers, but there's almost nothing more frustrating than spending a whole bunch of time on sales materials, assets, research, and it just getting stuck on Google Drive or Confluence back in the day. You put so much time into it. And so we spoke to number one, getting your stakeholders involved early. That's key, right? You want to build something they'll actually use and get research that they would actually apply to improve the business. I think format really matters. So in terms of research, giving a transcript back from calls to a product marketing team, not that helpful because they're going to have to go do more work, right? If they're going to bring that to their head of product marketing or CMO or CEO, they're going to have to analyze that whole transcript, break out the key takeaways. They're going to have to look at trends across a bunch of reports. That's what Buried Wins and me as a product marketer does that I think that's exceptional and different, which is instead of just giving you a dashboard, like a big tech company or a transcript, our company gives you the materials you need to bring it directly to the exec team. Meaning, any report you have to an exec team, you're going to have the executive summary and key takeaways. We're going to have 30-second clips of the customer describing the pain so that you don't have to do the talking, but you can let the customers say the words directly to the executives, because nothing moves the needle and creates action faster than direct customer feedback, right? We're going to call out quotes and tie it to context. How much money was spent and how related is this problem to a revenue opportunity, or is it just anecdotal? And finally, we're going to connect all the dots, right? Is this a strong and passionate pain point amongst one customer, or 8 of the 15 people we'll talk to, or 13 of the 15? And so whether you're doing this yourself or hiring someone like Buried Winds, you should make sure the format comes in a way that's going to resonate directly with your end audience. So I'll add one more thing. I talked about it from an executive standpoint, right? Putting together that report. When it comes to sales, like they're actually not going to get that much value out of that report. What they want are, of course, they use competitive battle cards. They want to, if you have customer stories for them, that can often be like gold, right? And so I have something for the go-to-market pack audience, if you will. We worked really hard and have just launched into production a prompt that we use against transcripts that pulls out like, hey, tell me about the company and the pain point, and tell me about how your company solved it for this customer and what the next steps are. And if you run this prompt against the transcripts, it gives you a really nice short 2 to 3 minute story that a salesperson can tell. And you can just use it against all of your old transcripts of win-loss interviews. And so that's another way to make it applicable for your audience and make sure it doesn't get stuck on the shelf. But I'll send that to you so that anybody can grab it and use it if they're watching the show.
That'd be amazing. Drew, thank you so much for being on the show and just sharing your wisdom around win-loss strategies, but also just go to market and product marketing in general. If folks wanted to get in contact with you, maybe follow you on social, perhaps hire you to do this really critical work for their organizations, what are the best URLs or channels to reach you?
Sure. So it's buriedwins.com, like closed wins, closed lost wins, reason codes. So buried treasure, merge that together, buriedwins.com, or on LinkedIn. I'm very active posting content about things I'm learning in the business so you can apply them to your own. So either Drew Giovannoli on LinkedIn or buriedwins.com.
Awesome. And it sounds like for the folks out there, we'll go ahead and link out to the prompt that Drew was mentioning. But also, if folks wanted to reach out to you directly to maybe get access to that, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it and have a wonderful day.
It was a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.